A creature so ugly it cries puddles of tears. Cannibalistic monster. A sexy moth. Today we are talking about cryptids. Now, if you aren't familiar with what a cryptid is, think Bigfoot, think the Loch Ness monster. They are creatures, beings that have so much speculation around it, but there's no documented evidence that they actually exist. Now, before you roll your eyes and think you're not really into talking about make believe animals, I want you to picture something. The year is 1700. People are losing their mind. They are talking about this monster. It has the face of a fox, the hands of a human, and the tail of a monkey. Today, we call them kangaroos. In the early 1900s, there were subspecies of gorillas that were talked about in the same manner that we talk about Bigfoot. RIP Harambe, things have not been the same since you left us. So to think that there are like actual creatures out there that just aren't discovered is completely plausible. Now, do I think that there's some that are just completely made up and just folklore? I will be reasonable and say yes. So, before we get started, my name is Lauren. Get comfy, go snuggle up your cat or dog, and let's get started. The first cryptid that we are going to talk about today is one after my own heart and my own home state. We are talking about the squonk. Now, the squonk's first mention was in 1910 in a book called Fearsome Creatures of the Lumberwoods. This thing is said to be so ugly. It has sagging skin, it's covered in warts, it has crooked tusks, cauliflower ears, and it is so self aware that it just cries puddles of tears. The squonk is said to live in the hemlock forest of the Pocono Mountains. This thing only likes to come out at night because it does not like to be seen by people. There were hunters that did have close encounters with the squonk, and as soon as they got close enough to approach this thing, it was said to just kind of disintegrate into this pool of tears and bubbles. This poor thing. Now, the squonk is said to be a kind of a hybrid of like some kind of hog creature and once lived in these beautiful forests with tons of trees and tons of greenery until the Civil War, and it just got all cut down. They had to use a huge portion of this area for resources and to build a railroad track. Now, this once beautiful landscape became this desolate swampland. The squonk is said to have evolved ever so slightly to this new living situation and is said to have one webbed foot on its back leg. Now, because of this, the squonk thinks it's this pro swimmer and finds itself in bodies of water where it swims in circles around and around and around until it eventually drowns. This poor little guy. There is this encounter by J.P. Wentling that has captured a squonk, and he said he put it in a bag and took it to his home. And as he was walking home, he noticed the bag got lighter and lighter and lighter. And suddenly he turned around, opened the bag, and it was just a bunch of wet fabric, which could be, who knows? Now, if you are just as in love as with this beloved creature as I am, you can find yourself in Johnstown, Pennsylvania every August to celebrate this guy at Squonkapalooza. It sounds like a really good time, and I definitely want to make my way out eventually. So, this Squonk, if he only knows how much he is loved, maybe he wouldn't cry so much. Next, we are talking about a gruesome monster called the Wendigo. Now, the Wendigo is originally from a Native American tribe who kind of used it as a lesson not to be so greedy and selfish. Back in the day, during these incredibly harsh winters, hunters were supposed to go out and find food, and they were not able to catch anything. They became so hungry and so starved that they kind of resorted to they ate their children. They would go home and just basically eat their kin. Now, when their tribe would catch word of this situation, they would ban this person for life for two reasons. The first one being, how could you ever trust a man who would resort to such practices? How could you ever trust somebody that would eat their own children? The second one is said because once you taste human flesh, you become so insatiable with that craving that there is no going back. There is a It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia episode where Charlie and Dee believe that they ate human flesh and they just could not curb the craving. That's all they thought about. That's all they wanted to eat. And it turns out that it was actually just a raccoon with a tapeworm that they consumed. But it kind of just gave me that vibe hearing about the Wendigo. Now, once you became the cannibal, it overtook you. You became this actual subhuman monster. They are described as being just skeletons with skin stretched over their bones. They are these long, emaciated creatures with just like their rib cage protruding. Their eyes are said to be these dark, sunken in, glowing objects. They have sharp, they have sharp fingernails and sharp teeth. They have blood-stained lips. They are said to reek of just sickness and death. They are supposed to be incredibly smart and incredibly fast and have a scream that you can hear in the darkest of night that will just absolutely make you freak out. The Wendigo is said to kind of lower you into them by acting like a normal human being, maybe acting like they're hurt or that they need help. And then once you're on their radar, it is game over. This Wendigo species has actually made its way into psychiatric books to describe someone with a cannibalistic tendency. The Wendigo is, again, subhuman. It cannot be killed with normal measures. You cannot stab it, you cannot shoot it. If you're coming trying to stay away from the Wendigo, now the only way to get rid of this thing is with fire, is the only way to melt its heart of ice. That is actually super terrifying. The Wendigo is said to be in Forest Mountains, it's in Pennsylvania, they're in Canada, Michigan. There's a lot of states with Wendigo sightings. There's a lot of missing person cases that are documented that actually kind of conclude that this person went missing because of a Wendigo, which is absolutely crazy if you think about it. If I ever saw this thing, dude, I'd be so far gone. I'd probably actually just lie down and give up because they are so fast. The year is 1884. You're in Texas, an old Alton bridge. You're minding your own business, and all of a sudden you hear click, clack, click, clack. You look around, trying to figure out what's going on, and suddenly you see what you think is a man. It has the body of a person, but the face of a goat. I am talking about Goatman. Goatman stems from a lot of different folklore. People believe that there was a bunch of Satanists that got together on Old Alton Bridge and had this seance and summoned this demon from another dimension. A portal opened up and this creature came out, and it was the Goatman, and it just wreaked havoc on the entire town. There was also a backstory that the Goatman was actually a goat herd or goat farmer that was hung and betrayed by the people in their town. And the last words before he died was to curse the town and come back and just create chaos. The Goatman has broken into a bunch of people's homes. It has eaten their beloved cats and dogs. It has stalked people and even had unconsensual relationships with women while they were sleeping, which is something I hope to never experience. There is a lot of folklore about Goatman, and if you go on the bridge, there's going to be a lot of people trying to see if they are lucky or unlucky enough to catch this being. Now, apparently, you can hear the hooves of the Goatman kind of clanking down the bridge, and if you hear 3 knocks, you know he is there, and to run far, far away. There's a bunch of people that have said to even see Goatman outside of Texas, lurking in the woods, killing animals. Again, he looks like half a person, but with a goat face, which is awful. And yeah, so Goatman, I hope he's not real. So worms can't be dangerous, right? Right? They can't they can't hurt us unless you're the Mongolian Deathworm, which resides in the Gobi Desert. This thing has an actual scientific name that I am not even going to try to pronounce, but it translates to intestinal worm, which is kind of gross. This thing does not have legs, doesn't have eyes, it has nothing. It looks like a giant sausage. It's about 2 to 7 feet long, and if you even go near it and if you touch it, you just instantly die. Now, obviously, logic says just don't go near it, right? Well, it also has the ability to spit venom at you and also just melt your entire skin off of your body. You can feel the death worm coming in. I can't say that with a straight face. You can feel the death worm coming at you when you hear this electrical buzzing sound, and it has like a rhythmic thumping. It reminds me a lot of the movie Tremors. And actually, there's been a lot of sci-fi movies, and I think it makes kind of its appearance in the game Dungeons and Dragons. So there is a lot of kind of hype behind this thing. Paleontologists in the early 1900s were the first to talk about the Mongolian deathworm. They saw this giant creature just coming at you with a path of death and destruction, because anything that got around it was just instantly, it was dead. Um, there are a lot of stories behind this thing. Now, people believe that they aren't real. It's completely all made up, but there's still a lot of backstory with this guy that just sounds kind of horrendous. It's 1967 in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. Two couples are hanging out at a old abandoned TNT factory that they used for World War II, and there is nobody around when suddenly they notice two glowing red lights. They could not figure out what could be attached to these red lights because nobody ever goes in this area, and they just keep staring at it, and they notice it's getting closer and closer and closer until they realize that those aren't red lights at all. Those are the glowing red eyes of the Moth Man. The Moth Man is a 7 foot humanoid creature with a 10-foot wingspan, glowing red eyes, and is just this dark gray complexion. These guys freaked out. They like had no idea what this thing was. They all got in the car and sped off. They thought, okay, great, we ditched that thing, whatever it was, whatever bird creature it was, until they realized the Mothman was stalking them. They floored it, going over 100 miles an hour, but still they could not shake the Mothman. They ended up in a local police station where they were recounting this crazy story. The police actually believed this group of adults because they've never been in any trouble. They were kind of well known. It was a super small town, and they were just so absolutely distraught that they knew that they saw something crazy. Within the following days, dozens of people were reporting the Mothman and seeing this big bird like, bug like creature with glowing red eyes, kind of stalking them, flying over them. It was chaos. A couple months later, there was a tragic accident where one of the bridges in Point Pleasant collapsed, and it unfortunately killed about 40 people. But before this happened, people were blowing up the local police department, claiming to see this giant creature sitting on the edge of the bridge. They could not figure it out what was going on. Now, it left the town divided. Was this Mothman kind of a creature of death and destruction that wanted to cause harm and chaos? Or was he kind of this like angel like being that wanted to warn people, but maybe didn't know how or was too afraid to present himself? Now, there were a lot of people who saw this and would speak up about it. And when they did, supposedly, the men in black showed up and not only threatened their own life, but threatened the lives of their family. So it is a possibility that even more people saw the Mothman, but just were so scared to talk about it in the open because they feared for their safety that they just didn't want to speak of it. There are a lot of sightings with the Mothman that does involve some kind of UFO object flying in the sky, either around where he's been located or kind of they've seen him go into this UFO object. People kind of believe that he could be some alien creature. There's also people that believe that because he was kind of near this old abandoned TNT factory, that maybe he was a human experiment gone wrong. The Mothman did not stick around to Point Pleasant, West Virginia. He has been seen all over the world, and it's usually before a huge and tragic event. He was seen in Russia before an apartment building that was said to be bombed. He was even said to be seen at 9/11. So is Mothman this kind of, I don't know, is he good? Is he bad? I don't know. I want to believe in him. I want to think that he's good. But again, like the Squonk, he is very celebrated, and you can go to Point Pleasant, West Virginia, where you will see a life size statue of the Mothman. You can get Mothman inspired treats. They even have a Mothman inspired pizza, which sounds amazing. Mothman is probably one of my favorite cryptids. There's something about him that is just so captivating. And that's why I want to believe that he's maybe good. Who knows? Either way, let me know what your favorite cryptid I talked about today was. Let me know what your favorite cryptid that I didn't talk about could be, and we could just do a couple videos of this. Um, my next video, I want to do something a little bit different. I have this idea called Meatless Murder, where I talk about true crime while trying to cook vegan recipes. So I'm really excited about that. That'll be fun. And yeah, I just want to thank you guys for watching this video. It means so much to me. I love you. You matter. I will see you on the next one. Bye.